Detective Pikachu has been unseated from the number one box office position that it had on Friday. Endgame has a projected $27.4 million for Saturday, compared to $20.4 million for the Pokemon film. Detective Pikachu only really took the lead on Friday because its advanced screenings money was added in as well. It actually earned about $1 million less compared to what Endgame actually earned on Friday, but with the advanced screenings money, it took the official lead and was the number one film for the Friday in the US domestic box office. And the Sunday projected numbers are also out. At this stage, Avengers Endgame is projected to get $19.5 million, and the Pokemon film is projected to get $16.9 million for Sunday. This brings the total US domestic box office for Endgame to $723,499,739, and its worldwide total right now is $2,485,499,739. It did cross the $700 million mark on Saturday, like I predicted it would, which is the equal fastest $700 million ever, same amount of days as it took Star Wars The Force Awakens to get there. And on our chart, once again, with The Force Awakens, Avatar, Endgame, Infinity War, Jurassic World, and The Last Jedi, we have Endgame now in yellow, and Endgame has moved past Infinity War. So Endgame has earned more money than Infinity War got in its complete US domestic box office run, and we're only at the end of the third Sunday. And it's also more clear than the chart was on Friday as to where it stacks up against Star Wars The Force Awakens. So it was underneath the blue line on Friday, but now it's even more clear. You can see after another 2 days that it is still underneath the blue line, and it will continue to be underneath the blue line. It will not continue on at its current sharp angle that's angled up because of the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It will flatten out just like the blue line flattened out above it for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday coming up, and then it'll go up again for the next 3 days and then flatten out for the next 4 days and so on. So it will not go above this blue line. It will earn less money than Star Wars The Force Awakens earned in the US domestic box office. The current total for Endgame, the $723 million, is about $37 million off what Avatar got, so I think it'll take around about another week for it to earn that. I think on Saturday next week, it'll actually get over the $760 million mark. Now maybe it'll take an extra day over that, but it should definitely have it done by the end of next weekend, and at that stage, it will be the second biggest film ever in the US domestic market. So here are the actual numbers, the gross records in the US domestic market without inflation. And we can see Avatar $760 million, Endgame $723 million, Endgame just overtook Black Panther and Infinity War on the Saturday, and as I said before, I think it'll overtake the $760 million that Avatar had on the next Saturday. So on the next Saturday, it'll be over $760 million. It won't get $936 million to beat Star Wars The Force Awakens. I think it'll get somewhere around about $850 million at this stage. And on the inflation-adjusted US domestic box office, Endgame is now the 31st biggest film. It has overtaken Jurassic World, and it is just underneath Disney's Fantasia from 1941. Now, again, with the about $850 million or so I think it'll get, that takes it to around about Return of the Jedi. So Return of the Jedi's got $847 million in inflation-adjusted terms. That is the 16th biggest film. And Avatar has $876 million with inflation, the 15th biggest film. So somewhere around there, that's where I think it'll actually end up at this stage. So I don't think it'll go past that. I don't think it'll get to Ben-Hur or The Empire Strikes Back. And it certainly won't get to the inflation-adjusted Star Wars The Force Awakens. That's nearly $1 billion, $974 million. And on the world totals, we still don't have much to look at. It still looks like it has since last Sunday. It is the second biggest film ever. It was over Titanic last Sunday, and it's still over Titanic, but still underneath Avatar. It's now got $2.48 billion. It needs $2.78 billion to go over the top of Avatar. So it's got around about $300 million to go, just a little bit more than that, $300 million to become the biggest film ever without inflation. And on the inflation-adjusted world totals, Endgame is now the 5th biggest film ever. It just overtook The Sound of Music and E.T., and it is still behind Star Wars, I nearly said Star Wars The Force Awakens. It's still behind Star Wars A New Hope with its $2.7 billion. So once again, as I've mentioned quite a few times in other videos, Star Wars A New Hope with inflation is roughly the same target as Avatar without inflation. So it's $2.7 billion. That's the real target that we have left. Can Endgame get to this $2.7 billion mark? So as I said, I think we're looking at about $850 million in US domestic market, and it's got about 720 right now. So approximately an extra $130 million is what I think is realistic to expect the film to get right now in the US domestic market. So if we take the $2.485 billion it has right now worldwide, and we add on to this $130 million, that gives us $2.615 billion. And if we take that away from the Avatar record, the $2.788 billion, that leaves us with $173 million. So I'm saying if it can get $850 million in US domestic market, it only needs another $173 million from all of the other foreign countries, including China, all of the countries other than the US, to make it to this Avatar total. So $173 million. Now that doesn't sound like that much money. The film hasn't been out for that long. But let's have a look to see what's been going on with the foreign box office money. So at the end of its first Sunday, it had a total of $866 million in the foreign market. So the end of the first Sunday had $866 million. And then 1 week after that, or 1 week ago from this Sunday, it had a total of $1.569 billion on that Sunday. And right now, the projected number officially for this Sunday is $1.762 billion. So we can use these totals from these 3 Sundays to try to see how quick is the money going away in the foreign market. Now the first Sunday doesn't represent an entire week, but it does represent the opening weekend and some extra days before that. So we got $866 million on the first Sunday. We got an additional $702 million to the next Sunday, which is a full 7 days. And in the 7 days after that, only had $193 million for this current Sunday. So this week's total compared to last week's total to the Sundays is a 72.5% reduction. Now, if we have another 72.5% reduction over the next 7 days, that'll be $53 million in total in the foreign market. Now, I think best case scenario, you're looking at a 50% reduction. I don't think it'll get that good a reduction, but if it gets a 50% reduction for this $193 million, that's around about $95 million roughly. So $95 million is kind of the best case scenario, what we're looking at for foreign earnings over the next week. And if it has another 72.5% reduction, which I don't think it'll be as big as that, but that is the number that we just had, so there's no reason to say that that can't happen again. It can happen again. I just think that's a bigger drop than it'll actually be, but we're looking at $53 million. So I think right now it's realistic to expect something between the kind of 90-95 and this 53 figure. So maybe something like $60 million, $70 million. That might be a realistic total for what we're looking at that Endgame will actually earn in the next week in the foreign box office. So once again, if we're going to get $850 million in the US domestic market, and that's not a given, that's just the number I think it'll get. It could obviously go above that, but it's not guaranteed to get this 850. But if it gets 850, it needs another $173 million in the international market. Now, if it only gets this $53 million in the coming week, which I think it'll get more than that, but if it only gets this $53 million, if it gets another 72.5% reduction, that means the week after that, best case scenario, it'll get around about half of it again. It'll get another $25 million. And then again, best case scenario, it'll probably get about half of that again. And so if it only gets $53 million in this week, I don't think it can get to $173 million. I don't think it can beat Avatar if that's what happens. Now, if it gets $70 million, $90 million, then it's looking like it can happen. It's still going to take several more weeks to get there, but it can definitely do it. So that's the real question here is how big a drop will it be from this $193 million, which it got in the past 7 days, for the next 7 days? Is it going to be quite close to $193 million or quite far away? Now, obviously, if it's quite close, it's broke the record. I'm saying it only needs $173 million. But these are the figures that we're actually dealing with. So this isn't a done deal. It looks very easy to do right now. We've nearly got $2.5 billion. We need 2.7. We're only third weekend. Plenty of money left. But is there plenty of money left in the scheme of things? $200 million or $173 million is still $173 million any way you want to look at it. You can't just conjure it out of nowhere. The film has made a massive amount of money already. And I guess everyone's already seen the film that wants to see the film. We're probably down to people with their second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever they're up to, viewings on the film itself. I can't imagine there's too many people out there that wanted to see Endgame, but just couldn't be bothered doing it in the last 3 weekends. So Endgame, I'm sure, has been seen by everyone that wanted to see it, and now we're just down to people that either didn't really want to see it, but are going to see it because of all the hype, or the people seeing it for the second or third time. So is there enough people in the foreign market to get this $173 million? And so I'm optimistic that it can get there, but because Endgame had all of the foreign markets open at the same time, or I think it was all of them except for Russia, but all of the foreign markets open at the same time, it means there are no new foreign markets coming online as the weeks roll by. So with Infinity War, for example, Infinity War looks to have a lot better legs in the world market than what Endgame has, because China and some other key countries didn't open at the same time. So it had its opening money, it had its next week's money, and then it had a big boost from countries actually opening the film again. Whereas Endgame, it got $1.2 billion in its opening weekend, or opening week, however you want to count it, and that's because everyone was already on board. So all the money is already there, and that's why it's now going away at such a drastic rate. Another film that has the illusion of having excellent legs in the world market was Aquaman. Aquaman didn't have any foreign markets open for the film except for China at the same time as the US. So the reason it kept looking like it's just earning a bit more money and a bit more money abnormally was because more countries were actually opening the film. And so we have the exact opposite here with Endgame. Everyone's already opened, everyone's already got their money in, and the money's basically done. So can we get $173 million more in the foreign market? I think it's a lot tougher to do than it sounds, but I think it is still doable. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.